Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 17 of Days Gone By, the review series for Gran Turismo's selection of classic and also vintage cars. And in this particular pick, we're featuring one of those vehicles which oftentimes in the high performance class, rather than more mass production vehicles, you occasionally find vehicles such as this one, and some others, like the Dome Zero, the light car company Rocket, and a few other notable ones, that really punch well above their raw spec. Vehicles which, on paper, don't seem like much. They don't sound that impressive. Now take this car for instance. The Toyota 2000 GT is a very iconic car. It's considered to be one of the best looking Japanese cars ever made. It's essentially Japan's answer to the Jaguar E-Type, and although they didn't make a huge amount of them, it is a highly sought after classic, fetching pretty decent prices to say the least. Now in the game, it is a pretty expensive classic. 160 grand is a lot for a Japanese car. Typically they're known for being quite affordable, but some of the classic Japanese cars on Gran Turismo fetch quite a bit. So what do you get for 160 grand? Well, on paper, as I said, it doesn't sound like that great a deal. You buy this car for 160 grand and it certainly looks the part. It's a full premium, which is relatively rare for classics on Gran Turismo, and when you fully tune it, it pumps out a monstrous 288 horsepower. That doesn't sound impressive at all. Neither does 213 foot-pounds of torque. And let's be fair, the weight of this car at 937 kilos isn't that impressive either. It looks like it should be lighter than that. The PP isn't particularly high at 469. So why the big deal, and more importantly, why the big price? Well, as I alluded to at the start of the video, this is one of those vehicles, like most notably and probably best known for it, the light car company Rocket in that regard. This car really punches higher than that raw spec, because 288 horsepower in most vehicles would give you a top speed of say 160, 170, maybe 180. In this car it can do over 220 under its own power, and even more with NOS and draft. That's pretty respectable. That puts it up there with the Mercedes Gullwing, which has significantly more power, and various other cars, even up to and including race cars, which this is quicker than. Because to put that into real perspective, this car has, let's say, a third of the power of a NASCAR on Gran Turismo. No, it does have also less downforce, but it has a better top speed than said NASCAR. That's quite ridiculous, but at the same time means that this is potentially a very, very valuable weapon to have in your garage. Now, many classics are quite quick in a straight line anyway. The aforementioned Mercedes Gullwing, for instance, is a quick car. The Cobras are extremely quick. The Dome Zero, which we mentioned earlier, is also quick, and there are many others which are as well. Many of them do have very good top speeds. But the reason why this car is so good, and why it shines brighter than many of the others, is because it doesn't just have top speed. Because it has such little power, wheel spin is not really an issue, because it doesn't have much power to deal with. The handling as well is far better than you would ever think it could be for such an old car, especially an old sports car. They're not exactly known for being the best handling of cars. Think Cobra, think Stratos, think a plethora of other classic cars that are known for the exact opposite, for being challenging. So this car really sets itself apart from that crowd by being not just passable, but brilliant. The handling on this car is phenomenal, and the lower amount of power you have, the better it gets. And the great thing about this car as well, or another great thing, is that because it has so much speed from such relatively little power, even when you reduce said power to get it to a lower PP level, for instance, you're still guaranteed to have that strong top-end performance because of how much performance it gets from the power it's got. So even if you reduce it down to, say, 450 or 425 pp, you're still going to have one of the best top speeds you can get at that level. So it's a remarkable little car for straight line performance, for track potential, even for the looks being a full premium, which, as we said earlier, is not that common for classics on the game, which is a shame, but that's just the way it is at the moment. Overall then, yes, 160 grand is a lot for a car which is small, old, and only has a 288 horsepower 2-litre engine, but for pure performance, it has to be said that when you consider what it's got to work with, this is actually one of the best cars in the game. Because it's all well and good having amazing performance when you've got 1,000 horsepower to work with, but if you can get a car to be as quick as this one is, with such a comparatively tiny spec to work with, that really is impressive. Now, of course, that's not particularly realistic, but on the game, it sure is fun. And as far as competitiveness, it's one of the best classics you can get. So if you perhaps haven't bought this car before, maybe you've underestimated it, which is certainly easy to do, then I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's fun to drive, surprisingly easy to drive, and as we've ascertained, phenomenally quick. So that's it overall for this particular episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.